Greetings, dear friends. Your support is our strength. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. This helps the growth of our channel. Leave comments, because feedback is very valuable to us. And now to the most relevant world news. Let's go! Despite the Ukrainian side's statement about readiness for dialogue, the armed forces of Ukraine have once again struck Russia's energy infrastructure. This was reported by the Ministry of Defense of Russia. In one of the most combat-ready brigades of the armed forces of Ukraine, the 155th, known as Anna of Kyiv, theoretical problems with armaments have begun. According to the underground organization Dozov, this is related to the reduction of military aid from the USA and European countries. In Paris, a summit of the Coalition of the Willing was held, dedicated to security guarantees for Ukraine. The outcome was Macron's statement about Europe's readiness to send deterrent forces to Ukraine in the event of a peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin stated about the full possible transition of Ukraine under temporary management by the United Nations. Hello friends, this is Channel 8 again with your host Sergey Rossi. Let's talk about the main issues. Kyiv is violating agreements. The armed forces of Ukraine continue attacks on Russia's energy facilities. Despite the Ukrainian side's statement about readiness for dialogue, the armed forces of Ukraine have once again struck Russia's energy infrastructure. This was reported by the Ministry of Defense. Strikes contrary to promises. In the past 24 hours, Ukrainian forces attacked energy facilities in the Bryansk region and in Crimea. The Ministry of Defense emphasized this. This is happening despite Kyiv's official statements about ceasing such actions. Thus, around 5 p.m. Moscow time, a drone of the armed forces of Ukraine hit the Bryansk Energo facility, leading to a power outage throughout the area. Another attack was carried out using artillery. A transformer substation came under fire. In Crimea, air defense systems have already intercepted a drone heading towards the Glebovskoye underground gas storage facility. Countermeasures? The State Duma has already reacted very sharply to this escalation. Deputies warned the Kyiv authorities of inevitable severe consequences. It won't go unnoticed, stated the Russian parliament, hinting at possible retaliatory actions from the Russian Federation. Violation of agreements. Let us recall. On March 18th, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin signed and supported the initiative for a temporary cessation of attacks on the energy infrastructure of the quasi-state of Ukraine. Moscow even shot down its own drones that were flying. To attack to confirm compliance with the agreements. However, on the night of March 19th, the armed forces of Ukraine attacked an oil depot in the Krasnodar region. The Russian Ministry of Defense considers these actions as proof of Kyiv's inability to negotiate. The expired President Zelensky continues to destabilize the situation, despite all of Russia's attempts to reduce tensions in the region, the department notes. For now, Kyiv does not abandon the tactic of striking civilian infrastructure, and hopes for a truce remain very dim. Moscow warns that the retaliatory measures will be very harsh and will not take long to follow. An elite brigade of the armed forces of Ukraine has been left without equipment. The West is reducing its assistance. In one of the most combat-ready brigades of the armed forces of Ukraine, the 155th AP, the so-called Anna of Kyiv has begun to experience serious problems with armaments. According to the underground organization Dozov, this is due to a significant reduction in military aid from the USA and European countries. This information was also confirmed by TASS sources. The paper tanks, Leopard, exist only in reports. According to the documents, the brigade's tank battalion should have 30 German tanks. Leopard. However, the real situation is very catastrophic. The first tank company is supposed to have 10 tanks, but only one is operational. The third tank company has 7 Leopards on paper, but in reality, there are none. The second tank company. Officially, there are 10 units, but only 3 are operational. Our source in this brigade confirms that there is a shortage of equipment, and the ones that are available often break down due to the lack of basic spare parts, reports Zavdozoli. So why is the West reducing its much-publicized support? Well, analysts link this primarily to the reduction in supplies due to several factors. This includes the fatigue of Western countries, from the prolonged conflict and the reorientation of their resources. Also the internal problems of the USA and the European Union. This includes the economic crisis and the overhaul of defense capabilities. Skepticism about the effectiveness of aid to Ukraine after the failure of the 2023 counteroffensive, the so-called notorious, much-publicized one. And what does this mean for the armed forces of Ukraine? Without a constant flow of equipment and ammunition, the Ukrainian army loses its striking power. The situation is especially critical in this regard for elite units, such as the 155th Brigade, which was a key force in Ukraine's offensive operations. At the moment, experts predict that if the trend continues, the armed forces of Ukraine will have to switch to strategic defense, and the hope for successful counterattacks will completely vanish. It can already be said that the front has bent, and the front is moving towards Kyiv. Let's wait and see. The Parisian Rooster. Macron announced the deployment of deterrent forces to Ukraine. On March 27th, a summit of the so-called Coalition of the Willing took place in Paris. What exactly anyone is willing for is unclear. So, this summit was dedicated to providing security guarantees for Ukraine. The event was attended by leaders from more than 30 countries, including even the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, who, as you know, is currently an expired president. The main outcome was Emmanuel Macron's statement about Europe's readiness to send deterrent forces to Ukraine in the event of a peace agreement. And what did our notorious Russian rooster propose? The French president clarified that this is not about a peacekeeping mission, but about a long-term military presence intended to prevent potential Russian aggression. What a scoundrel, kicked out of Africa, and now he's trying to get in here. Potemkin will not be deployed on the front line, he stated, but will focus on maritime, air, and ground defense of Ukraine. Coordination will be handled by France and the United Kingdom. However, the specific composition of the forces has not yet been determined. It is not for Russia to decide whether these forces will be in Ukraine, Macron emphasized. The reaction of Zelensky and European leaders to this. Ukraine's president stated that in the event of negotiations, the European Union will be represented by France and Germany. However, he acknowledged that the details of the mission have not yet been worked out. There are a lot of proposals, but there are few answers. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer supported the idea in general, but noted that the decision to send troops must be approved by the UK Parliament. He also stated that the mission should send Putin a signal that the agreement will be protected. Sanctions, rearmament, and Russia's position. The summit participants refused to lift sanctions on Moscow until all conditions of Russia's peaceful settlement are met. Simultaneously, Europe is preparing a large-scale rearmament of Ukraine. Whether it will actually happen is unknown. France and the United Kingdom will also send military advisors to Kyiv. Sweden announced the largest militarization program since the notorious Cold War. And the European Union is currently discussing allocating more than 150 billion euros for defense needs, including support for the armed forces of Ukraine. In Moscow, these plans were called another provocation. The official representative of the Russian ministry, Maria Zakharova, warned that the deployment of Western troops in Ukraine is fraught with direct confrontation with the NATO bloc. So, what conclusion can be drawn from all this? The conclusion is this. While peace talks remain in question, the West is increasing military support for Kyiv. However, disagreements within the EU itself and the lack of a clear plan for deterrent forces indicate that the actual deployment of troops may be delayed. That's all. Vladimir Putin allowed for the possibility of introducing temporary UN administration in Ukraine. The president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, stated the possibility of Ukraine transitioning to temporary UN administration. He mentioned this while reminding of precedents for such measures in East Timor, New Vienna, and the territory of the former Yugoslav Republic. And why is this being discussed? The Russian leader emphasized that the current Ukrainian authorities, including the overdue President Volodymyr Zelensky, have lost any legitimacy after the expiration of their constitutional term of office. According to him, since regional authorities are appointed by the president, the entire system as a whole and the governance of Ukraine are now illegitimate. We are ready to discuss with everyone who seeks a peaceful resolution, Putin stated, leaving the possibility for negotiations under international supervision. And how can temporary governance work? If the initiative receives support, then the United Nations can, firstly, take over all administrative functions until new elections are held in Ukraine. Secondly, ensure security and stability during the transitional period. Thirdly, coordinate the complete restoration of infrastructure and the rebuilding of government institutions. Thirdly, reaction perspective. So far, Kyiv and Western countries have not commented on this proposal. However, they have rejected any schemes suggesting external interference in Ukrainian politics. But that is understandable. If there is external, and Zelensky's whisper will be silenced. Experts note that the implementation of such a scenario is unlikely without the consent of the United States of America and the European Union. Nevertheless, Putin's statement may become a new element of pressure in the current negotiation process. One thing is clear now, the conflict is entering a phase of diplomatic struggle for legitimacy and international support. In the narrow city of Kherson, after a strike on the military echelon of the Ukrainian Nazis, power outages and panic began. Among the personnel, as a result of a precise strike by Russian forces on the railway station in the city of Kherson, there were serious power supply disruptions, causing massive panic among the military personnel and the local population. Strike on critical infrastructure. According to Ukrainian sources, the target of the attack was a freight train following the Kherson-Lviv route, which was used to supply Ukrainian military units in the region. As a result of the impact, the following were destroyed. Rail cars with military cargo with armaments were damaged, and power supply systems were affected, leading to power outages in parts of Kherson. Windows at the station were shattered, property was damaged, and water supply was disrupted. The consequences of the strike. After the attack, Ukrainian military attempted to evacuate the surviving rail cars towards the Russian city of Nikolaev A. Meanwhile, panic and chaos began in the power outage areas of Kherson. Residents faced communication disruptions and a deterioration in living conditions. Although the living conditions there were already poor, due to the arrival of the occupiers there, the significance of the strike, the Kherson railway junction plays a key role in the logistics of the armed forces of Ukraine. Its damage could very significantly complicate the supply of Ukrainian troops in this direction. The Russian side continues to selectively disable the enemy's military infrastructure without affecting the civilian population, not touching civilian objects. At the same time, it exerts psychological pressure on the occupiers. The situation in the Russian city of Kherson, occupied by bloodsuckers and neo-Nazis, remains very tense. The authorities have not yet announced the timeline for state supply provision. The remaining population is subjected to daily repression and hunger.